Good afternoon, everyone from Ireland, and welcome to this UCD MSc Politics and Data Science Programme webinar. My name is Lorraine Woods, and I am the UCD Manager for South Asia. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Elkink and Professor Stefan Müller from UCD School of Politics and International Relations. Today, we're going to be focusing on the MSc Politics and Data Science Programme during this webinar. To note, this session will be recorded and shared with students afterwards also. Please do put any questions you have in the Q&A and we'll be happy to answer them after the presentation. I'll now pass you over to Professor Elkink and Professor Müller, who will begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine, and welcome everybody. So I'm very happy here to talk about the MSc in Politics and Data Science. You will see that we have a number of staff that are very excited about this program. We started it about a year ago, so we just have our first cohort finishing up soon. And it's going very well, and students are really enjoying it, and we are very happy about the structure of the program and how it's going. So today, me and my colleague Stefan Müller will talk a little bit about the program and its contents and how it relates to your career, and also some technical details about admissions and scholarships and so forth. But let me first talk a little bit about the slightly bigger picture, where we are based, and so let me talk about Ireland as a place to study and a little bit about UCD as a university. And then we'll gradually zoom into the specific program, the MSc in Politics and Data Science. So Ireland is a very nice place to live. So me and Stefan both came here as foreign students. So we can attest to it that we made a nice move there, and we also stuck around. So that tells you something. I think if there's one thing that Ireland is famous for, it's for being green. And we can attest to it that this is not just a myth, it's actually a very, very green country. Now this photo is from one of the most touristy places in Ireland, admittedly on the other side of the country, not in Dublin, but it's easy to access and to go to. It's in the Cliffs of Moher, which are very beautiful, very famous. And if you want to convince your parents that Ireland might be a good place to go to, one of the features that is nice about Ireland that will help in convincing them is how safe the country is. So in the Global Peace Index, Ireland is ranked as one of the safest places in the world to live. In the latest rankings, we are at the 12th place. And that tells you something about lack of crime, lack of violence, war, etc. It's a very safe place to be for both men and women to live and to go around and to hang out with friends and so forth. Now, many people might have hardly heard of Ireland or know very little about it. So let's first talk about where it is. So we are in Europe, in the far west of Europe. It's a tiny country. So if you compare this to many of the Asian cities like Delhi or Beijing, the whole country here is nothing compared to any of those cities. We have less than 5 million people in the entire country. We are in the capital, so this is University College Dublin, and we're in Dublin. The currency that is being used is the euro, but probably most important, the language that is used here is English. So you might have heard of Irish or Gaelic. There is indeed such a language, and you can study it when you're here. But if you actually want to hear people speak Irish, you have to travel to the West Coast, find some really remote village, go into the local pub, and if you're lucky, you will find some people speaking Irish. In the capital, actually nobody does. So when you know English, you can get around Ireland very easily and nicely. So that's one of the main big advantages of Ireland. We'll talk about a few more later. Now, as I said, we are based in Dublin. Dublin is the capital. By being a big city, it means it has lots of entertainment, facilities, everything is there. You know from other countries, when there's the capital, there's also the most theaters and events, and most things are happening here. So they also happen here close by. Ireland particularly is known for its live music, its bars, its vibrant theater scene, and so forth. Now, of course, currently with the coronavirus, much of this is a little bit changed. But of course, we hope that in September things will improve a little. Another nice thing about Dublin is its location. We are close to the sea, we are close to the mountains, there's lots of parks. You actually get out of the city very quickly when you want to relax a bit over the weekend. And then in this Dublin, we have University College Dublin, which is the largest university in the country. It's kind of the national university. It's most, so for example, most politicians, they would be graduates from UCD. It is the sort of Irish university, but also in international rankings, it scores very high. It scores in the top 1% of universities. So if you want to have a reputable global university on your CV, this is a good place to go. The photo here that you see is of the hall where all the graduation ceremonies take place. So it might be a little bit premature, but eventually this is where we want you to end up. And even though we are in the capital and we are a city-based university, only 15-20 minutes by bus from the city center, we actually have a very large campus. So our campus is about 350 acres. Almost all the faculties and departments are all in the same region. There's a business school that is separate, but aside from that, everything is on the same campus. And having such a large campus so centrally in the city is quite rare. So we are in Europe actually the largest urban campus. And you can see I told you that Dublin is close to the sea, and you can see it here. In about a 20 minute walk from the campus, you're at the coast. Now, that's enough. You are here, of course, because you want to hear a little bit more about the program. And so that's what we go in a little bit more detail. So this is the MSc in Politics and Data Science, which is a relatively unique program. There's very few programs in the world where you can make this combination, doing data science and political science. And we also try to target quite a wide range of students. So this slide is a little bit about the structure of the program. We think in terms of credits. In total, we have a 90 credit program, and 30 credits will be devoted to your thesis. And the other 60 credits are part of your taught modules. So we will have classes from September until the end of November, and then again from the middle of January until the end of April. That's where you take 6 modules in total. They form the taught module part. And then during the summer, and also maybe a little bit before that, you start working on a thesis that will be under individual supervision. In terms of the core modules, we have roughly divided the program in 2 streams. So we try to make sure that at the end of the program, people come out with enough knowledge, technical knowledge of data science to be able to participate fully in a data science team, but also enough politics knowledge to understand what is going on in political science, how can we interpret our political environment. And to get everybody up to speed in the same that same combination, we give you different core modules depending on your undergraduate background. So if your undergraduate is in a technical degree, you might have done software applications or engineering or maybe in science, and you will have already some skills in statistics, programming. Then we will focus our core modules on the political science side of the program. We will make sure that at the core, before you start working on the more optional modules where you apply data science to politics, we will make sure that the core training is in politics itself. Whereas if your background is in the social science, you've studied politics or economics or sociology, and now you want to do politics and data science, we are going to focus the core modules on the technical skills. We teach you how to program in R and in Python to make sure that you're up to speed with the data science part of the program. So I will hand over now to Stefan, who will talk a little bit more about the finer details of the contents of the program.
Welcome, everyone. As Jos has just mentioned, I will talk a little bit about the skills you acquire, also provide some examples of the modules that you can take in this course, and provide some examples of concrete research projects our current cohort is working on, so that you get a better impression of what you will learn, what you will be able to do after only around half a year in this module, and what skills you can actually then use after having completed this master's in your professional career. As Jos has mentioned, you will acquire methodological skills, but also attend political science modules. And I just want to give you some examples of what we will teach you and what you will learn. So in terms of the methodological skills, you will have modules on statistics and quantitative methods. If you don't have the background, if you have had some statistics modules before, you can also take it. This gives you a very good introduction of the main statistical concepts of how to conduct a quantitative research project, what to pay attention to, and also how to implement the statistical concept and the theoretical concepts using open source software that is used widely in the public, private, and academic sector. You can also have a module on programming where you use the Python programming language. So you will be able to use actually 2 different programming languages in your in this degree, which is a huge plus on your CV, because depending on the company or the organization or the university you will work at afterwards, they might use different programming language, different code, and you will be able to use 2 of the most popular programming languages. We will also teach you how to work reproducibly. What does it mean? Well, that you can actually write your code and then run your code and do the same on a different machine, or give it to someone else and make sure that he or she can also run this code. You will also learn how to use version control. Here we use Git and GitHub, which allows you to basically save snapshot of your code and go back and forth to make sure that you don't lose any of the information, any of the data, and any of the progress. And it just helps you to set up a workflow that basically is safe, is secure, and you can reuse. You will also work in teams and work on quantitative research projects. In later slides, I present some examples. Going through to the next slide on Python and R, here are some examples of what you will learn if you take the technical stream of this, or the programming stream of this module. And here you see some code. On the left-hand side, this is Python code. On the right-hand side, this is R code. So it looks kind of similar, and it might look like a completely foreign language to you. That was the same when Jos and I started programming. But I can promise you, even after taking the programming course and the module on Introduction to Statistics, you will understand what is going on, and you will not only understand what's going on, but you'll also be able to write this code, adjust the code, and adapt it to your own research project. You can also choose modules such as quantitative text analysis, where you will learn how to import, analyze, and transform large textual data sets of political speech, of party manifestos, of newspapers, of social media, and use these data to answer substantive social science research questions. You can also learn how to conduct network analysis in R and Python. So long story short, you have a lot of modules you can choose, you can take that will get you up to speed in terms of cutting edge methods in data science. And here's an overview of the optional modules you can take, and there's actually a lot. I checked the timetable for this term earlier on, and I think we have over 18 or 19 modules that you can take in this term alone. Yeah. So apart from the core modules that Jos had mentioned earlier on, you have also core choice modules. We can talk about questions about the structure later on, but just to give you some insight, so you can take something like a module on dynamic social networks, on text analysis, on international political economy, on European governance, peace and conflict research, comparative public policy, and so on, political violence. So we offer in our school a wide range of modules and cover all subdisciplines of political science in our school. So you have a wide variety of modules that you can select. Going to the next slide, we also offer several workshops, seminars, and events outside of the class setting, because we think it's very important to interact with you, to get to know you, and to provide additional offers that you can where you can participate, get to know us better, we get to know you better, and you can acquire some additional skills. So for instance, in our School of Politics and International Relations, we have a seminar series that takes place almost every week throughout the term, where internal and external speakers from all over Europe and the world present their ongoing research, and you have the possibility to listen to their presentations and also to ask questions and make improvement suggestions. For our MSc in Politics and Data Science, we also set up the Connected Politics Lab seminar series that you will take part in. For instance, this term we have 6 presentations from scholars from Europe and the US who present cutting-edge research on computational social science, on data science, and on political science. In this Connected Politics Lab, we're happy to answer questions about that later on as well. We also offer additional workshops and events. So, for instance, a workshop on version control, a workshop on how to create your personal website, which is also a useful skill, workshop on how to use software such as LaTeX, or also some other soft skills workshops. So we are currently further developing these offers, and look forward to provide you various opportunities to participate in other workshops and events in the next academic year. Here are some examples of the collaborative research projects our current cohort is working on. So they are in teams of 3, 4, or 5 students, where they answer a relevant social science research question using cutting-edge methods. So in one project, for instance, the group uses YouTube captions from all videos of the Irish Citizens Assembly. You might have heard of it. It's one of the most influential deliberative assemblies worldwide that took place in the last, there were several assemblies that took place in the last 8 years, which have resulted actually in substantive policy changes, but no one has looked really into the debates, into the deliberation, and into the discussions. Using these transcripts from all the videos, this group is currently trying to understand how presentations by experts influence subsequent Q&A sessions. So here you will use quantitative text analysis, speech recognition, and regression analysis, for instance, to answer this substantively important question. Another project focuses on the portrayal of politicians in images. So in this project, the students apply cutting-edge methods from image recognition, from computer vision, in order to understand, okay, how do the media portray politicians? How do they show them? Which kind of emotions are present in these images? And do the media exert some sort of biases when they talk about some politicians, party leaders, or different parties, for instance? In this project, the students retrieved Twitter data from Irish and international news outlets and applied these techniques to, first of all, filter only those tweets, in that case, that contain images, and then classify these images according to their to the categories that are relevant for answering that research question. A third project uses network analysis and quantitative text analysis to understand strategies in speeches by European central bankers. In particular, they look at the times between 2018 and today, so it's really recent, and try to understand how the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the speeches, the speech-making behavior, and also the political opinions expressed by central bankers. After you have completed this degree, where can you work? What can you do? So as we have mentioned before, you will learn important skills from data science, but also from social science and political science. And you can apply this domain knowledge in various roles. So for instance, you could become a political advisor or a data analyst, a data scientist in the public sector or in the private sector. You could manage data. You could also, you would be prepared for roles such as a chief information officer, or if you want to stay in academia, you will also be well equipped for social science PhD programs.
Thanks, Stefan. So I think this diagram on the left actually tells you quite a bit about where we envisage you to be with this program. So when we teach data science, we will teach you programming, R, statistics, text analysis, network analysis, a lot of technical skills, but that still does not make you the equivalent of somebody who has gone through years of training as a computer scientist or as a statistician. That, of course, we cannot sort of suddenly replicate within 1 year. We give you just the skills that you need to really work in a data science team, to understand what data scientists are doing, to speak their language. If they talk about their programming and their analysis, you should be able to understand what they're talking about. You can do some basic prototyping analysis, etc. And what you really bring is then that connection to understanding the social world, understanding politics, understanding the context, right? So the domain knowledge is quite strong for people that come out with this degree, and you will have just enough basics of the mathematics and computer science and statistics to really be able to talk to and work with the larger data science teams, or to do sort of more basic data analysis, survey analysis, etc. when you work, for example, for an NGO, right? So that's also why we put a lot of emphasis on teamwork, why one of the core modules that we have is this Connected Politics Lab, in which you are doing these projects that Stefan just outlined in a group to learn exactly how that works when you work together. And also when we teach, I teach the programming module. When I teach the programming module, you are working in one big team, trying to do one big project, not all kinds of small exercises at home, but always focusing on teamwork. And that's exactly because that's where we see the kind of roles that you would get with this kind of degree. Now, there's another reason why Ireland is interesting, other than that it's green and safe and pleasant and friendly, and this is a great university. These are all good reasons, but there's another reason, and that is that when it comes to this data science IT field, many of these companies actually have the European headquarters in Ireland. Ireland has the big advantage that it's English speaking, which many of these companies are as well, that it has a highly educated workforce, that it is within the EU, so it does not have any of the sort of trade barriers that might be outside the EU. So it is a great place for many of these companies to set up their European headquarters here. Google, Facebook, Airbnb, and so forth, they all have major operations in Dublin. And that means that there's good job opportunities here, and I will tell you in a second how you can benefit from that. But it makes Dublin a particularly interesting destination. So one way you can benefit from that is by working while you study here. Now, I'm not going to overemphasize this because studying is a lot of work. We are trying to teach you both basic data science skills and the basic understanding of politics, and that all in 1 year. So that's a lot of material in a short period of time. So we really want you to focus on that. That said, there are some opportunities to work. Yeah? So under your student visa, you are allowed to work 20 hours a week during term time and 40 hours a week outside of term time. And compared to many other countries, the minimum wage here is not bad. Yeah, so if you want to work a few hours in the week to help a little bit to support your studies, or if you want to use a lot of the summer to do that, that is a possibility. But again, we're not going to encourage you too much. I prefer you do this after your studies. Also, when you make your budget for studying, you should not calculate this in, right? So you should see this as a bonus. If you can earn a little bit extra money by doing some side work, that is okay. But don't build your budget for before you come to study, assuming that you will find that you will work, say, 20 hours a week, because that is going to become difficult. Much more important is how Irish law regulates it after your stay. So in Ireland, after you get an undergraduate degree, you can stay for a whole year. But for you guys, it's much more interesting after you finish a graduate degree, like the MSc in Politics and Data Science, you will get a 24-month, 2-year stay-back visa. That means you have the automatic right to a working visa for 2 years after obtaining your degree. Yeah, so it's a 1-year degree, 12 months, and then a 2-year stay-back visa. And I just told you that all these IT companies are here. So there's plenty of interesting opportunities when you have these kind of data science skills. Now, unfortunately, there is a price attached to all this. So for non-EU students, the fees are just under 20,000 euros. That is a lot, but then we also do a lot. It's a very intensive program. Unfortunately, there are some assistance there in the terms of scholarships. So first of all, we have the global scholarships. Those are scholarships that you do not have to apply for. They are competitive, but they are based on your transcripts, the kind of institution your undergraduate is from, and so forth. And they will automatically be assessed when your application is assessed. So when you receive your offer letter, it will already state whether or not you have received one of those scholarships. And secondly, we have a scholarship scheme in the School of Politics and International Relations that we normally refer to as SPIRE, to not have this mouthful. These are graduate scholarships. They are like teaching fellowships. So you would be asked to do some tutorial teaching. And in exchange, you get a reduction on the fees plus 6,000 euros in stipends. Yeah, so there are some scholarships available to reduce a little bit that overall fee. So we're happy to take some questions. If you want to learn more about us, you can look up our website. So we are part of the School of Politics and International Relations, and we are also, the program itself is also kind of attached to the Connected Politics Lab. All the staff that is very active in this program is also very active in this lab. So both are very helpful to understand better what we do.
Perfect. Thank you both for going through that presentation. It was very detailed, and it was great to kind of get a better understanding of the program. Yes, as Jos said, please do, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A or the chat function. We're happy to answer them. I have a couple of questions that I just want to go through, maybe with both of you as well, just in relation to what we've, I suppose, discussed with regards to the presentation. Can I ask one question actually? Yes, how many students are on this program? How big is this program, or what way, I suppose, are kind of tutorials, or what way is the program assessed as well? Are students broken into different groups? Can you talk a little bit about that, just kind of the size of the program and what way it will be kind of assessed during the year?
So we are in the first year. And the program is relatively new, so we have also a relatively smaller group, but we think that will grow, right? So I don't know what the long-term sort of class size will be, but we assume that this will be maybe 20, 25 students. But what is very important, though, is that a lot of these classes overlap also with other programs in the school. So when it comes to programming and connected politics, you are probably just with the students that are on this program. But in the other modules, Introduction to Statistics or all the politics related modules, they are also modules on other programs. So class sizes will vary. We aim for class sizes around 30, 35. Sometimes they will be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But that is the kind of class size you would normally think of in our school. In terms of assessment, so it is rare to have end of term exams. They might be possible for some modules, but they are not common in our masters. We typically look at essays or reports or analysis exercises that need to be done that you will be assessed on. It's actually an important question because it is important to remember that this is still in a social science discipline. And therefore many of the courses, they will be assessed in a more social science style, which means there's a fair amount of essay writing. For example, when I do the programming course, there are a few quizzes to test on technical skills, but the largest part of the assessment is based on self-reflection reports, where students try to evaluate how they performed, what they did well, how the teamwork went, and so forth. I think in the statistics module, Stefan can correct me, but I think it's also often about applying it to then a politics context and write a little bit around the interpretation. So it's not just the technical skills. It's not that you write some code and you submit it and we check whether it works. It is more often that you do some analysis and then try to also look at the academic literature, see how it connects, try to interpret a little bit what it all means, write essays around this, and that is the main form of assessment.
Yeah, so to jump in there very quickly, in the Introduction to Statistics module that I taught last year, there were some homeworks where you applied the skills and code from the lectures to real world data. So it's not some simulated data or something you cannot relate to. No, it's something like the last Irish election study or international cross-national data sets, data on elections, on parties, on conflict. These are all data sets you will work with in your homework, and you will also have an end of term paper where you actually develop your own research question under my guidance and my support. So you can always come to my office hours to discuss details. So you will develop a question and you will look for data sets to actually answer that question using methods that you have learned in this statistics module. So this is just one example how these modules look like, even though even the modules that involve coding and programming are very applied.
Perfect. I know that's great. Thank you. There's a question has come in from one of the attendees, and they're asking what kind of opportunities a computer science background student could have maybe after this program, even for non-EU students, if obviously if the program is of a political nature. So I know we kind of touched on careers, but maybe could you speak a little bit more maybe about careers again, and maybe kind of even the university's links with industry and kind of the supports that are in place through maybe the careers network and the school as well around kind of students and careers, if that's okay. So I don't know, Jos, do you want to start maybe again?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. So you might think that because the program is of a political nature that you, for example, would work for Irish civil servants and then only Irish citizens are allowed, or you would work for political parties and this is primarily for citizens. But I don't think that is the main aim of this program, and that's not where most people will end up. Of course, if you want to work as a civil servant, it helps to understand a little bit about data analysis, and government departments are becoming a bit more aware of the needs to use data and have this what they call evidence-based policy making, where they look more at data analysis before they make their policies. But I think the kind of careers that this program trains you for is much broader than that. So this also includes working for NGOs or for lobby organizations, or a lot of commercial companies will have government relations. They have to interact with governments. They have to understand how citizens work, how democracy works. Think of recent debates about Twitter and Facebook and privacy or fake news, right? So we are now expecting companies like Facebook and Twitter not to be spreading fake news and to have policies around this. So that really brings these companies very close to the democratic process, right? So they are starting to get a role in how democracy functions. Now, whether or not you're happy about that, this is very debatable, but it certainly means that these companies need people who understand politics, or understand how democracy functions, or understands what kind of considerations we need to have, maybe normative considerations, maybe considerations about how this data might be used or implications, etc. So other than just technical people that understand how to filter text or analyze this data, they will need people that have some sensitivity to what happens politically, and what they need to be careful with, and what they can apply, what kind of policies they need to develop, and so forth. So and there the nationality doesn't matter. So it does not matter that you have a non-EU background. If you have a computer science background and you have the strong technical skills, and you come us and you take a module on misinformation in politics, on elections in politics, on etc., this will give you a very strong background to then work for one of those more technical companies that have concerns that are exactly at the cross-section of how politics and public debate and public opinion works, and how they have their algorithms and their decision making. So I hope that answers the question a little bit. Lorraine also referenced the careers office. So UCD has a careers office that will help you. We also have fairs at the university where companies come into campus and you can meet with them and talk about job opportunities that are there. And I would envisage that in future we will also let you build a contact with alumni from the program as well, and see where they're heading, and ask them to come in and talk about the program and so forth.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, and I think that's that is really important to kind of mention in terms of the career supports as well, is that obviously when students are starting a program, you know, if they are serious and they do want to stay in Ireland and they do want to look for jobs after they finish their program, is that they have to be very proactive from the very beginning of the year. So engage with the Careers Network team and that office, and attend any of the events. Obviously, we had a lot of our events took place virtually this year, but normally these kind of career fairs would take place on campus. And then also just kind of being aware if the school flags any opportunities, or if there's any guest speakers, things like that are always an opportunity for networking as well. So I think that's something that students kind of have to be a little bit aware of. But yeah, no, that's great as well. Another question just came in from Supriya, and Supriya is just asking, do you recommend social science students, should they learn a software language before they join the program? What is, so I suppose, students' backgrounds, if they're coming from a kind of social sciences background, how would they be supported in a kind of a different manner, or will they'll be, I suppose they'll have to take on with this kind of extra piece of learning as well?
No, you don't, and that's one of the advantages of the program, that you don't need to have any prior knowledge of coding or any skills, or you don't have to attend any online courses in advance. You will learn this in the course, and I'm fully convinced of it. And actually this year, when I taught the Intro to Statistics course, I saw that it's working. So I'd say between 80 and 90% of students who took the Introduction to Statistics module had never worked with R or Python before. And 13 weeks later, everyone submitted a research paper where they used the R statistical programming language to conduct their analysis. So long story short, you don't need to have any background in coding or statistics. You will learn this when you take these modules, and you also don't need to be worried that you are left behind if you don't have these skills. No, this degree is supposed to bring you up to speed. It's also a lot of work, of course, but it is working, and we see the progress the students make. And also, this is a bit related, the group projects that I presented earlier on deliberation, on portrayal of politicians, they are now only around 6 weeks into the term and already produced results, and have prepared the data to conduct the analysis. So I think this is the best example I can give you, that you don't need to have any prior coding skills, and you don't need to be worried.
I think it's also why we divide the program into streams, right? So students that come in with a background in programming or science background, etc., they will not then have to take those introduction statistics, introduction programming, etc., right? So they skip it, and then if you have a social science background, then you focus on learning these technical skills, and we will guide you from the start.
Yeah, no, that's great. Stefan, just to go back to something you mentioned in your presentation, and you just mentioned it again, the collaborative projects. Can you speak a little bit more about those? And there are quite interesting kind of topic areas. Is that decided by the school and the academic professor, or are students putting forward ideas for those projects, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this year we are a group of 3 professors from the School of Politics and International Relations, and every one of us is advising one of the groups. We met for the first time in mid-January and presented a range of research projects that students could work on, but that was not the concrete research question, it was just some inputs. For instance, the central bank speeches, or the data on the Citizens' Assembly, or the portrayal of politicians. There were also other projects that were at the end, they're not selected, which could have been data on newspaper coverage of election promises, or on effective polarization in European democracies using a parliamentary speech. So we presented a range of potential data sets, data sources, research questions the students could work with, and then we just asked them for the preferences and allocated them into groups. each group is coordinated by one of us, and we are in active contact with each group. So we have a Slack channel. Slack is similar to WhatsApp, but a bit more structured, where you can actually have real-time chats with your peers, but also with us. We check this every day, at least once or twice, reply immediately, give advice, send some code snippets, meet our groups usually every week or every 10 days to discuss the progress. So we don't give you the research question, we give you some ideas. Some of the projects then are selected, and then it's actually up to you to come up with the research question. So we don't force you to do anything. We provide some ideas and suggestions, but it's completely up to you as a group what you want to study.
It's great that I suppose students have that flexibility to have discussions with academic professors around this, and they're kind of pursuing something that they're interested in as well. It's not something that's been assigned to them specifically. It's nice that they have that opportunity to kind of give feedback on topics and be able to kind of have a discussion around it as well. Another question that came in, I don't think we touched on it, but perhaps, I don't know if it's part of this program, are there any internships or placement opportunities as part of the program at the moment, or is that something that you're looking at in the future? Or is there, I suppose, students always have the opportunity to do internships during vacation time and things like that as well, if it's not a set part of the program. Jos, is there anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, it's not really part of this program. So we try to focus this. So an important part of internships is learning to work in teams and learning to work on actual projects. We have integrated that more into the third component of the program. So we have this connected politics module that Stefan just talked about extensively. And that is where you build exactly that kind of experience. That is a little bit like doing an internship, in the sense that you work with an academic on an academic project. That is a genuine project, and where you work in a larger team. So a lot of these kind of skills and experiences that you build up in an internship, here you build up through that module, and everybody does that. But we also wanted everybody to write a thesis and do a research project by themselves as a capstone to the program. So there's no internship as part of the program itself. We have only 12 months, and in those 12 months, we need to teach you both the data science part and the politics part. And it will be difficult if we then also go off for a few months to work for somebody else. For that, we really have the 24-month stay-back visa, right? You build your work experience after the degree through the stay-back visa, through any of these companies that we mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, that's yeah. I think as well, if students are coming for a 12-month program, they will be quite busy. It will be intense, and it'll be fun as well, of course, and they'll enjoy their time. But I suppose that's because it is a one-year program. Everything has to be covered. And again, yeah, look, I would definitely say just make use of kind of the supports and the career supports that are available to students once they're finishing their program, but kind of just to be aware that they should be trying to access this kind of throughout the year as well. Something else I just wanted to talk about, maybe Jos, you could talk about, and then Stefan as well, is I suppose students who are coming from a non-EU country. I know a lot of feedback I get from students is that it is when they arrive in Ireland and they're studying in UCD, it's very different than studying in their home country. And a lot of it is to do around students are sometimes quite surprised at how much access they have to academic professors and staff within their program, and even in terms of kind of being able to arrange office hours or drop, I think Stefan, you mentioned earlier, drop into your office to check if they've any questions that they want to check with you. I think students really enjoy that element, and I suppose because this program, if they're, this isn't a program with 100 or 200 students on the program, so I think the academic professors probably do get to know the students quite well, and I think that's something that students, they do often kind of say this is something that surprises them and something that they enjoy about the program. But I don't know, Jos, can you talk a little bit just about kind of the access that students have to professors? And I know even at the moment, a lot of universities, not just UCD, have been teaching remotely, but I think students have still kind of been saying to me anyway that they've been able to chat to professors kind of like this through kind of webinars and virtually and have meetings with them even at the moment. So that's something I think that UCD does really well. And I think that that's something that we talk about when we're talking about coming to study in Ireland, making students feel welcome and welcoming students when they arrive in Dublin Airport and kind of when they arrive to the university. But maybe could you just speak a little bit about that, kind of how students can kind of have access to professors and what that's like?
Yeah, I actually think this somewhat strange period in which all the teaching is online, which of course we it's not ideal. But on this front, it has actually had its advantages, because with this, with the breakout rooms that you have online, you can work in small groups. As a lecturer, I can sort of walk around virtually from one room to the next, and people talk to me much more directly, almost like they feel more at ease to ask questions in these online sessions than sometimes in a bigger classroom context. So in some senses, that interaction is even more direct than normally. I think one of the big advantages of this program is that there are a number of staff members involved that are all really quite passionate about this program, more than you, I think, on average see with programs. This is not a program that because you're a politics department, you have to teach this, right? This is a program where we had a number of staff members that are really keen on data science, and they are political scientists. And they thought, why don't we design a program around this so we get more students that do exactly what we care about? And that's exactly what we see happen now. That's also why the Connected Politics Lab is so great, because these students work directly with a professor on a project in groups. And so I think that that direct interaction is actually very, very present and very much, it gives a different feel to this program, I think, than many other programs you could do. And also the thesis that you write at the end is under individual supervision. So you get assigned a supervisor and you're working together. Now that's the case for all our master's programs. That's not so unique to politics and data science, but it still means that you have this individual supervision for several months in a row to work on a project that you are interested in, that you are keen on doing. So I think it's true that I think very accessible. Normally, of course, we have our offices on campus. Many students even live on campus. That's how close by it is, or they live somewhere nearby and they can easily reach the campus. And most of my colleagues, if you would knock on the door and want to have a chat, this is very straightforward and very easy. So I think people are indeed quite accessible. That's right.
And just to add one thing, we are also very happy to hear your suggestions or your or implement your initiatives. So for instance, in the statistics module, everyone wrote this research paper, and then the students came to me and said, oh, it would actually be great if after the module, 3 weeks after the module was completed, if we could all meet again and everyone who's willing to present his or her research project, and we just know what everyone has been doing, which is, of course, even more difficult to kind of coordinate when it's online only, because they didn't know, they couldn't see each other, they couldn't talk too much about the project, even though they have breakout rooms. And I said, yeah, of course. And then we met in a relaxed setting online, unfortunately, but we could hopefully do that next year in person, and everyone had the chance to present the progress, to present the results, and we could actually discuss the research outputs that everyone has produced. So that's just one example where the students came to me, had an idea, and I was more than happy to implement that and to facilitate this. Another example from the Connected Politics module, I'm just offering now, in addition to the module, Q&A sessions where students can text in Slack, they can ask questions or send me an email. I collect these questions and then we all meet and go through these questions. So we are very approachable. We're all very passionate about this program, about teaching you these skills, about supporting you throughout your master's degree. And these are just some examples that came to my mind.
No, that's perfect. And I think even it's great to kind of hear how the current situation and even the situation kind of the last few months around remote teaching has allowed for kind of additional opportunities for students to connect, and maybe connect in a different way with academic professors than they wouldn't have had to kind of previously been able to do. I think that's something that we do get asked a lot about from students. What's remote teaching like at the moment, or will classes be online in September? And I suppose the answer to that at the moment is it will depend on Irish government guidelines. It will depend on the situation, or it'll depend for around the world for all universities. This is not only obviously unique to Ireland and UCD, but what I would say is that we will be keeping students informed in the coming weeks and months around any updates from the university or from Ireland. But we very much hope that we will all be back on campus in September, as many universities around the world also are aiming for too. And look, and I think hopefully as things improve throughout the summer as well, we will have the opportunity to do that. We did welcome a large number of non-EU students to UCD in Ireland last September. All of this was very organised, and there was a lot of advice from the university. So students can expect to receive a lot of updates from the university in the coming weeks and months. And we will be hosting other webinars as well for students where they can connect with us and ask us any questions too as well. I'm just conscious of time. I just have one final question for both of you. Do you have any kind of final tips or advice for students who are thinking about maybe studying in Ireland and coming to UCD and looking at this program? Is there anything that you think they should be aware of, or they should prepare, or maybe even, I suppose, look forward to getting involved in kind of the wider kind of UCD society and clubs and societies and the network and all of that kind of thing? I don't know, Jos, have you any final tips?
A lot of questions at once.
Sorry.
I mean, the web, actually, the UCD websites and also some of the personal websites of people involved in the program will give you a lot of information about UCD, about Ireland, but even about the contents of the program. Because of COVID, we were sort of forced to put a lot of stuff online, and you can now actually, a lot is publicly available that you can access, so you can get a better sense of what's in those modules and what exactly we do. And when it comes to more just living on campus, for example, or getting into Ireland, the UCD Global website has really extensive information. Now, Lorraine knows more about this than I do, but there is very extensive support available through our global centers, through our teams here. And the website is really quite informative to prepare you for all that. There is a student society for politics and for politics students. Stefan actually knows much more about that than I do. There is an Indian student society and a Chinese student society and so forth, an international student society in general. And then we have student societies around all the sports you can think of and all the hobbies you can think. I think there's a Harry Potter society. I mean, you can think of anything, and there's probably a student society. And you will find information on that just by browsing our website.
Yeah, perfect. And Stefan, same question for you. Any final tips or advice?
Yeah, check out the Connected Politics Lab website, where we link to the MSc in Politics and Data Science. Have a look at our staff profiles, not only of those who are teaching politics and data science related modules, but from the entire school, because you can take their modules as well, see what they are working on, what they have published. And feel free to get in touch with us individually if you have some questions. And yeah, these student societies are a great addition to your studies. I know this because I did my master's in Ireland as well a couple of years ago. And as Jos has mentioned, there's a society for almost all activities. So you can do your favorite sports, you can connect, you meet people from other disciplines, from other countries. And I'm still in contact with some of my friends that I met through a student society back then in my master's. So that's also part of the experience of doing a master's program in Ireland. And
of course, you should already start following us on Twitter, right? So that there's especially the Connected Politics Twitter account. This is the lab within the school that this program is associated with. And we continuously update on interesting things that are happening in data science and politics, or here in Spire. And this is all just following us on Twitter gives you already a pretty good idea what we are about. I think so. I would recommend doing that and keeping an eye on.
Yep, perfect. No, that's great tips and advice. So I'm conscious of time. I think we'll wrap up this webinar now. My thanks to Professor Elkink and Professor Müller for joining us today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been great to connect with you. We will be sharing the links to this webinar with everyone, so please do remember to stay in contact with us over the coming weeks and months. We'll also be running further webinars through UCD Global in the coming months too. Do check out the UCD Global website, as was mentioned earlier, for the latest updates from the university, and you can also connect with us on the UCD Global social media channels, and also the School of Politics as well, also their social media channels. Thank you everyone once again for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.